probably the best thing I did when I was at Georgetown was cold call a Baker scholar, a former Baker scholar, named John Quigley, who was, involved with private equity investments and in and around Princeton University. And I got in touch with him. I probably sent him an email, whatever, said, I'll come to you. You don't have to do anything. I got in a car. I drove from Philadelphia. I went and saw him, and he was really kind with his time. And, it became a mentor of mine and someone that kind of explained the ropes a little bit, gave me great advice. So I think first thing is find great people in your life who can be mentors throughout. Second thing is don't be shy to just reach out and help. We were all college freshmen and seniors at some point in time, and we had people help us, and everybody should try to pay it forward a little bit, pay it back and forward. And then really just, go after passions and try to be smart and educated when you do get in the room and have the conversations. I mean, I remember I was a classics and philosophy major, so about as far away from Wall Street as you can get. I spent an awful lot of time reading and learning outside of the classroom in some of these areas, so that at least when I got a shot, I wasn't totally, from a standing stop. So, I'd say that's good people in your life, good mentors. Be proactive, don't be shy, and try to be prepared when you get your shot.
Any things they should be reading or listening to as well?
I get a lot of news from Twitter. I'm not sure that's going to be the best. There are some great writers right now, and so much is amazing because everything's free. It's kind of remarkable how much good content there is there. I'll tell you, one of the favorite writers and thinkers in media right now for me is a guy named Matthew Ball.
Yeah, I agree.
Who writes a lot about
yes
Fortnite. So hopefully that's not confirmation bias for me, but I think he's really thoughtful around the future of media and entertainment and how technology is going to change those industries. So he's got a website that you can go to and get great content for free.
No, I think what I would say is like sometimes, and a lot of times actually, Georgetown graduates, they come to me and ask this question, and my response is always pretty similar. In fact, because it's sort of the way that I did it, which is you may not end up where you want to be at first pass. And if you do, congratulations. You could also be like me and decide you didn't want to do it. But I think a lot of times you have to be creative about how you get your foot in the door, and you have to take the opportunity that's available and make sure that you can do as much as possible in that space in order to take, your next step. And so, I think sometimes, like even when I was coming out of Georgetown, there were things that I didn't actually really want to work in advertising at first. I was like, ooh, like advertising, like, oh my gosh, nobody does that. Whereas, that was one of the best experiences that I had because it gave me such a strong foundation in the business. I think you need to take the opportunity that's available, and then you need to chase down the next opportunity once you've kind of like built up your reputation, your resume, et cetera. I also think that it's really important to, go out and be confident and chase down those opportunities, like never let anything kind of pass you by. And just have confidence in yourself and go and do that. And so I think those are really important as you try to break in. And I think especially today when the market is like a little bit like not great, being creative about the ways that you get in there and you try to get things done is even more important.
Do you have any specific advice about networking? Like if someone's trying to network and connect with you, are there certain, do's and don'ts there that you would give advice on?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think networking, not only like in reaching out to people you don't know, but in staying connected to those that you've, passed on your way over time is incredibly important. You and I were talking yesterday and I said, I was at Wyden probably 10 years ago now, and I still reach out to the people that I worked with on that account today, because some of them are still in the agency world, and those people are the people that really truly know what's going on.
Yeah.
And so I think that's incredibly important. I think in terms of outreach and networking, one of the things I would say is persistence pays off. I remember when I got out of college, like if I reached out to somebody and they didn't get back to me, I was like, oh no, like they don't like me, I'm just gonna quit.
Right.
Like I've got 4 kids. Most of the time I miss the first email. And so you need to follow up. Like there comes a time when it's like a little inappropriate and it's like stalking, but it's definitely not after the second or third email. Like
respectful persistence.
yes, I think persistence is incredibly, incredibly important. And so that's what I would advocate for, you know, in terms of networking. And then just always having the conversation, even if there isn't anything available, just saying, can I talk to you? Can I understand what's going on?
Yeah.
And making sure, because most of the time people will say, well, I don't really have anything, but you can talk to my friend over here if you're interested in that. And then it just sort of like spirals. So it's super important. And I think the other thing that I will say, you know, is that sometimes it's easy to let networking go by the wayside. You know, especially as you kind of get older, you have a family, you get really busy. You have to sort of continue to push yourself to get out there and meet new people.
Especially that's been an interesting point vis-a-vis COVID too, where it has been, in some ways it's easier because you can do a Zoom with people, but at the same time, we don't have all those natural places that we network with people, like conferences or having lunch. You know, in Hollywood, it's all about, you know, your breakfasts and your lunches, you know, and so that is, you know, I even think about for myself, like it has definitely been such a change in not having those natural pathways to keep the networking going. So I think it's a great point that, you know, push to do that. And that can just be a Zoom call, you know, and a catch up.
Yeah. I mean, I will say like, I probably spent the first 6 months of COVID being like, oh, it's so weird. Like, I don't want to hop on a Zoom with someone. I mean, of course, as a business entity, if I'm talking to a vendor or whatever, it's fine. But like just reaching out sort of ad hoc, I'm like, oh gosh. But finally, you know, you have to do it. This is the way we're communicating now. Eventually, hopefully we'll get back to doing breakfast and lunch because those are the best. But right now, this is it.
It's hard, and a lot of it's breaking in on the entry level. A lot of it is internships and things like that. I got in, a lot of people my age broke into sports accidentally like I did. You know, I heard something on the telephone and I ran in. And, you'll find a lot of people my age, that's the way they got involved. And in people of my generation, a lot of it was lawyers, turned out to be the people who got involved in sports. And I think it's changed a lot since then. And so I think that breaking into sports initially is hard, and a lot of it is entry level. I also find, though, that there are ways to get into sports, maybe indirectly, by becoming really, really good in a particular industry or discipline. So the one I know the best is law. You know, when we look for lawyers, we often look for lawyers who were great lawyers and then want to get into sports. Now,
right. They don't have to have been in sports previously.
Yeah. Right. We're looking often for the best lawyer that we can find. Now, we do have lawyers who have been in sports for a long time, but they were also great lawyers before they got into sports. And I think that's true in communications. I think that can be true in marketing. So I think that there are indirect ways. So I always find, you know, to find the way that you can be the best at your particular discipline. And that can be an entryway into any particular vertical, right? So if you're a top-level communications person, I think you can find a way into other verticals through that. So I often tell people that, particularly in the legal, which is I know the best. And then I often find that, you know, it's very difficult to chart out a career. And, you know, how does this piece lead me to the next piece and the next piece? And so I actually think people should, as best they can, focus on the immediacy of what they're doing. It sounds like a simple and sort of obvious point, but I think it's so true, which is to be very interested in what you're doing, be very curious about it, and to engage in it, and to be energetic about it. And to, I find if you can find what you're doing interesting, no matter what it is, that will lead you to other things, and that will shine through, and people will notice that. And I find sometimes people are bored, or they think something's pedestrian or beneath them or whatever it might be. And I think there's almost nothing, particularly when you're young, if you're involved in something, do it at the very, very top level you can, because everybody can do something better. And I think that ultimately shines through, and that will lead to your next best opportunity, and you never know. Just like I mean, how could you predict being in a law firm and randomly assigned to work for the guy who ran the World Cup? Right? That's not predictable.
That's
What
right.
was good was, as you said, saw the opportunity and sort of jumped in front of it.
Outlets on paper, I wouldn't go there first. Magazines, newspapers are folding by the gazillion. However, I think that the internet has actually opened up a lot of opportunities for writers.
Right.
As I look for freelance, and you look around and say, how to find a freelance work, and I say, yeah, you can write a blog for a stuffed animal company, and we'll pay you 2 cents a word, or $10 total. So if you are just starting out, there are many, many opportunities online because people it's an information economy. They need things written still. It's not all pictures yet,
That's right.
or all YouTube. So yeah, it can be done. It can start at any age. I think it's one of those things where the older you are, the smarter you are, the more experienced you are, the better you get. But of course, it's a little hard to do a penny a word at a certain age. So I would say that, and there are writers groups everywhere.
Is that right? Okay.
Doing fiction.
You mean
You
online?
can get together, even online, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, people aren't getting together anymore. That would be more fun. But yes, even online, there are many, many websites like Reedsy, REEDSY, which funnels people into editors and agents and how to write a book and how to do this. And there's profit in that. So all the many, many people who want to be writers now have tremendous outlets for it. I think it's actually bigger now than it was before.
And it's democratized it, because in the old days you had these big gatekeepers. Now, if you have something to write, you can express yourself.
You can express yourself quite freely, just as you're doing here on the
Right.
Yeah.
The Zoom.
And nobody stops you.
Nobody can stop us, Louise.
That's right. You can't stop us from trying anyway.
That's for sure.
So I would say, yeah, this is actually an opportunity time, as long as you're not stuck on paper.
Right.
Let's see, a few things. I think play to your strengths for sure. So, well, I'll caveat that in a second, but if you think you want to be in the creative side, you'd be amazed how many MBA types want to work in the creative side of the business. There's a lot. I talk to them all the time. If you want to be in the creative side of the business, you have to completely take a step back and start at the bottom. You can't, if you want to be in the creative side of the business, I would not suggest that you go into the business side and leverage your MBA. It's just so hard. There's just such distinctly different parts of the business that it's very hard to cross over. I've had a few friends. One of my best buddies from Harvard Business School started out in theatrical distribution. Now he's one of the top TV showrunners and exec producers. But, that's not common. So if you're interested in the creative side, you got to go work at an agency at the bottom, or go work as a junior production person at the bottom. I really do think you got to do it the right way. If you want to be in the business side, I would play to your strengths to start. So MBAs, in Hollywood, all these big media companies have strategy and corporate development groups. Those are great ones to try to penetrate, because you get a tremendous overview of the industry, and they like MBAs. They want to hire people like you. So they definitely like people who've had financial analysis background. So if you worked in marketing at Procter & Gamble for 5 years, it's going to be hard to get a biz dev job in Hollywood. But if you worked at Goldman or in private equity or something, you're definitely going to be high on the list of people they would love to hire. But if you've been in other disciplines, Hollywood's in a very sophisticated industry now and has all kinds of legs. And so the opportunity to work in marketing, or work in, if you're interested in legal, or interested in HR, if you're interested in sales, there's tremendous opportunities. But so the first thing is, I would play to your strengths. So whatever your background's been, try to get in. The key in Hollywood is to get in. Just get in the door. I'm a perfect example of that. Like when I got into that job at Fox, I got paid a third of what I would have got paid if I went back to Morgan Stanley. And, but I got in and I proved my wares very quickly, but just getting in is the key. The other thing I'd say, my other piece of advice, because I get asked this a lot, is I'm a big believer in trying to have your first job be in more of a blue chip company, even if you take a step down or it's not as, so let's say some early stage, some media company that's a young company, and they want you to come in and be COO, and you get to do 9 different jobs and wear a lot of different hats. That sounds very alluring. Or you could work at Disney, but maybe take a job that's not quite as alluring or exciting. I would do the Disney job, because I think once you get in, and if you work at an established company early on, you get a lot of credibility in Hollywood. Then any company wants to hire you. If you have Disney on your resume, and then another media company wants you, they love it. Or if an early stage company would love it. So I believe in that too. Again, if you don't get an opportunity to do that, sure, take the other gig, because you want to get in, like I said. And then I would, networking is so important, especially in Hollywood. It's all about networking. And, it's, like I said, it's a very catch-as-catch-can industry in terms of how they hire. Some companies have some programs a little bit, like on the MBA biz dev track, you'll hear about some companies coming to business schools, but typically no. And so it's all about getting your butt to New York or LA. If you want to work in Hollywood, you got to go to LA. You got to move to LA. You can't graduate B school and go back to your home in Iowa and try to find a job. And my 100% piece of advice would move to the place that you think you got to go, and live on your friend's couch if you have to, or something for a while. Really hard to get a job in Hollywood if you're in Alabama. So those are some of the kind of the key things I'd say.
Great, that's really helpful. Thanks, Rich. Over
I
your
have one
career.
other one. Sorry, I've got another one. The other one, and this it's true in all industry, but again, just say yes to anything. I mean, anything that's not crazily unreasonable. If there's an opportunity, there's a special project, and they want people to raise their hand, say yes. Hey, we need somebody to work the next 10 weekends in a row on something. Don't say, sorry, I'm surfing this weekend. Say, yeah, I'm in, make yourself valuable and be reliable and make yourself valuable. Even and again, it's something I've been really good at in my career is I'm the kind of guy that I'm like a go-to guy. People could see quickly that I worked hard and that I was, committed and passionate. And so they would come to me. And if I said no to a bunch of things, they quickly move on. So that's my other piece of advice is just say yes and take the opportunity when someone gives you one.